Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Sidebar. Have you gone to sidebartv.com? That's where you can tell your friends to go because that's where you can find all the platforms that we broadcast on every Saturday. Tell them we start at 9:33 every Saturday. No.
You start at 9:30.
No, it was my fault. I was trying to. Have you ever logged out of Facebook and then suddenly you can't log back in because your Facebook or any other password is like 100 years old? That's what just happened to me. Hey, thanks everybody. Ann and Stryker. Stryker, thank you. Talking to you again. He watched the garden show earlier. Sarah, Arch, Michael. We really appreciate all you guys, and we love it that every week that you're here. And I will do my introductions now, and we always need to finish it up later. But if you have not been here before, thank you and welcome. Thank you so much for listening. Every week you can come here to listen to and watch the former Bexar County District Attorney Nico LaHood, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Goss Law Group, and George Rubio, scholar, former chemist, pharmaceutical researcher, and director. And we talk about life, love, liberty, politics, religion, faith, family. Did we miss anything?
We don't talk about fitness, obviously.
Look at me. I'm wearing a sweater because I just came from a studio that was like 30 below zero, but we should talk about fitness.
Yeah.
Every time I try to bring it up to you, I'm like, what supplements do you guys take? What do y'all eat? But the bottom line is y'all take every supplement and you eat nothing.
No.
Is that what it is? Is that the secret?
No, I eat a lot. Just eat the right stuff, hopefully.
Okay, so what did you eat for breakfast this morning?
I fast until lunch.
Didn't eat anything. What about you, George?
He eats the mother of all salads every day.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I had
except for Sunday.
salada for dinner last night.
It scales tall heights. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's huge.
It does.
You can get all your nutrients in. Half the shit I put in that salad, I don't eat. I won't eat beets. I'm not a fan of broccoli. I like
just
bell
because you
peppers.
don't like the taste.
I just don't like. It's got to be done a certain way. But when you put it into a salad and then you put in strawberries and apples, which fruit changed my salad game.
Oh, I love fruit in
because
my
I couldn't
salad.
stand salads. I mean, I didn't eat anything. So I put quinoa in there. I put black beans. You can put bell peppers, onions. I mean, I put like I said,
Garbanzos?
beets. I do black beans over garbanzo beans, but you can put chickpeas every once in a while, but they're really great for you. Every Blue Zone longevity society has a lentil, has a bean in there, so beans are great for you.
What about sweet potatoes? Do you ever eat them?
I love sweet potatoes. So I'm
Love
not
sweet
gonna-
potatoes,
and
yes.
regular, believe it or not, regular potatoes are not the enemy.
No.
It's what you put on the regular potato. There's some doctors.
Pound of
some,
sour cream and butter and
yeah, then you're
everything
screwed.
else?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
regular
What do you
potatoes
put on
are
your
great.
sweet potato?
Davi just seasons them with Mrs. Dash and maybe some garlic salt and some avocado oil or something like that. She does. Davi seasons them great. I mean, whatever she does, I devour.
I love cinnamon. I just love
Oh,
plain
yeah,
cinnamon
people
on
do
top.
cinnamon.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so what are you eating for lunch? I'm sorry, I have to know this because I've asked you this before and you're like, why are you asking me these questions? Because people want to know. Y'all are like tip-top condition.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean,
Well, no, I'm not
I'm a
talking about
beat-up
anybody, but the
fighter.
guy I work with before I come here, he brings, and I'm not criticizing him. I am not.
Yeah, you
because
are. Just
I
do
am
it on TV, or whatever, social media. Somebody send it
David
to him.
Rodriguez brings
good dude.
in 2 Whataburger breakfast burritos every Saturday to eat
No.
with a soda.
No,
Does he now?
he does not.
I'm not criticizing him. I'm just
I
stating
will.
the facts.
I will. I'll criticize him. Only for his own good. There's nothing good about that shit.
Is that in the blue zone? Would you say
No,
Whataburger?
that's in the dead zone. It's in the dead. Don't
Yeah.
eat that stuff, man.
One thing-
but you can make a burrito healthy.
I
You
know.
it's how you make rice and beans are a perfect protein. It's how you make the rice. I mean, look, all the Asian people don't eat white rice. Well, bodybuilders eat white rice. They need the carbs. It's complex carb.
Yeah.
But it's how you make it. It's what you put in there. Davi makes Spanish rice, unbelievable. The kids love it. I don't know, George. I don't think you've tasted it yet. You need to. She makes great Spanish rice.
Do
She
you
should
know
rice
how
and
she
beans.
makes it?
I mean, I've watched it. I mean, I
Okay.
won't make it like her. She
Bell
puts that-
pepper, onion,
nope,
tomato?
Nope, just
But you're not-
tomato taste,
you're not-
garlic, and onion.
But you're not going to have the queso, and you're not going to have the carnitas, and you're
Right.
not going to have the flour. But you can still make it tasty.
But if you are going to have carnitas, you want grass fed, grass finished meat. I mean, beef. I mean, if you're going to do that, I mean, I used to eat a bunch of beef, and I just changed as some things went on. But I mean, look, everybody has a different opinion. I'm just influenced by evidence.
And you know what your body responds to.
Yeah, and everybody's
right?
a little bit different, but these blue zones, they were 95%, kind of plant strong environments with a very little animal protein. And I was the 9 egg whites in the morning, dude. Pound of beef,
Yeah.
pork, bacon, and eggs. I ate eggs for dinner, lunch, and breakfast. I mean, everything.
Do you eat eggs now? You don't eat
not
eggs?
anymore, no.
Why?
I just, my opinion is not right for me, and I think we can get protein other ways.
Mm.
People think it's the greatest protein, the perfect protein. Look, I mean, you can eat some eggs. I mean, if you want to eat 4, 5, 6 eggs a week, you're not gonna die. I mean, you're good. I used to live off them, and I just seen my numbers in my blood change when I started going towards this way of eating. Every once in a while, we'll do a great grass-fed, grass-finished burger. I love meat. I used to live off it. My taste buds have changed, but I've not gone back to pork at all, and I'm no dairy at all.
Whoa, I love cheese, but I hate any kind of
Mexican,
milk.
then. You're Mexican.
I do hate any kind of milk.
There's a reason why viruses are grown typically in egg media.
Well, talk
So I
about
think
that
there's,
because people want to know.
But this is a legitimate concern. It's not some myth. I mean, there's a legitimate concern that egg media, since it's used to grow viruses in laboratories, et cetera.
What's egg media?
Egg media.
A medium, like a medium, like a egg
Medium.
base.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, good.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's possible that from a DNA perspective, it could be residual viruses left in egg protein. So there's some legitimate science and concerns
But if
behind
you're going
it.
to eat eggs, eat free-range eggs. I mean, so there's a way.
Find out
there's
where
a
they're coming
yeah,
from.
just
Find out,
if you're
yeah.
going to do it. Like I'm a big fish guy, so I eat fish. I love salmon. Red fish is good too. Sea
At
bass.
home, you eat that?
I eat salmon at home. So salmon. I could eat salmon every day. I love salmon. Love salmon.
I eat fish almost every day, not quite.
You know,
but
I used
almost
to
every day.
love
Love
salmon,
fish.
but I think
Love
a
it.
couple of times I ate it and it had that fishy taste, and I was like, I'm sick because it
You gotta
shouldn't
try-
have that. I
well,
know.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't mind
Yeah.
it, but it's
I-
but it's the way Dobby makes it. And then there's certain places I'll eat it at, but I just love fish. I love fish. Jesus multiplied fish. I'm gonna eat some fish.
Okay.
It's the dark part. It's the dark part of the fish that carries
that's
the
right, you
extra
don't.
fishiness, and he knows I take that out.
Yeah, I eat it.
But it's racist, so I try not to talk about it.
Well, against what race?
The dark race. I'm a
don't
brown
know.
guy. I'm offended. The brown people are offended, George.
I can't make any
brown
sense of the whole
fish.
thing.
The brown
But,
fish
pissed.
are
It seemed like the right thing to say. I
George is
mean, I
racist.
understand it.
Okay, should we start the show?
Yeah. Did you guys
No.
real quick before? I know you have
Yeah.
topics. Did you guys see JD Vance on Rogan?
No.
You should have.
No.
I thought it was pretty good. I watched it this morning. I got up at 6. Someone had sent it to me. I was like, oh, I'll watch it later. And then I said, okay, so I'll watch it. I was like, 2.4 million views already. It must be okay. And it's only
It's
a day or
new?
so.
It's
yeah,
a
it's
new-
just a day or so old.
So, are you telling me that you're giving up your bromance with
No. I just think
Marco?
no. I just think that Vance is solidifying his. He's going to be the candidate.
Don't you-
But it's around his book. He just so
I
Vance
wanna
is
get that book.
a mixed bag for me. So I like him overall. By the way, I think he comes across a little too fakish to me at first, and then when he starts talking like just guy stuff,
Like y'all,
when
yes.
Rogan starts getting him going and he's dropping some shits and some bullshits, which I like. And then he gets past the facade. And
He's a regular dude.
And he talks about Epstein. He talks about UFOs. He talks about Israel. He talks about Iran deal, which I thought he explained it decently. The best they should have had this dude out there explaining it from day one, but they haven't. And I just thought he
Why
did.
is that?
I don't know.
He kind of disappeared for a minute, and then he seemed to be like the blame for all
I didn't
problems.
I didn't like the way he handled Talarico. I thought he did
Yeah.
that very poorly. And just because people. Because Rogan says, "Well, he's such a strong Christian." No, he's not. He's not a Christian. Talarico is not a Christian. I don't. I'm sorry if
He's
I'm
some
sorry that I'm not
religion.
sorry. He's not a Christian. He doesn't adhere to Christian principles. I can't call myself a Muslim or Islamic if I don't believe that Allah is the ultimate and Muhammad is the greatest prophet and all this other stuff and the Shahada and all the stuff that they believe in. I can't call myself, just because I call myself an Islamic person doesn't mean that I am. So just because he calls himself a Christian doesn't mean he is. He doesn't adhere and advocate and defend Christian ideas. So he's not a Christian, but whatever. But Vance, maybe he didn't want to take up that battle. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't prepared to. It's probably a little bit of both. But he criticized other things about Talarico, but besides
I would have
mentioning
used
his name.
Talarico's own words against Talarico.
Yeah,
I mean,
but he didn't have him,
right?
I don't think, ready to go.
All right, because Vance is pretty able. I mean, he's pretty good, pretty decent communicator, and I mean, Talarico himself says that he hates Christianity. Well, that's interesting. Did he get that to get hits? No, he elaborated on it. Traditional Christianity, and so he's revising it. So he'll make a Christianity in his own image, and then he can love it. Well, that must be nice. Maybe I could do that.
Yeah.
Maybe if I just convert shit I don't
try
like
that
and
in
turn.
Islam, see what happens to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
even if you're like the basic Christian,
Wow.
and you
I didn't know
hear
he said that.
somebody say that there are many ways to heaven, or like many ways.
A lot
like,
of people believe that. Look, there's a lot of
Doesn't
people
the
that say
book
that.
say something different?
Yeah, well, no, with John 14:6, Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father because of me." Now,
Yeah.
so now we have to analyze that statement and analyze the person who made that statement. Is that? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just going to talk in the world's terms. Is that person full of shit, or are they not, or do they have credibility? I believe that person has ultimate credibility because I've looked at the evidence on that. Other people are going to say he's full of crap. Okay, fine. Well, where does the evidence lead us if we look at it objectively without our skewing of it? Because we bring our presuppositions and our biases into analysis, and that's not true analysis. If I bring my analysis into and my biases into an analysis of evidence, I'm not going to provide the best defense or prosecution if I'm a prosecutor to what I'm doing in court. George can't do that when he goes into the laboratory. He can't bring his own biases into a laboratory. He's got to follow the evidence where it leads him. That's what I've done.
Or recognize that you have biases and have mechanisms in place to deal with them.
Fair enough.
Because, I mean, everybody brings them, right? So when you go into scientific inquiry, I would suspect in a court of law, there are mechanisms to weed out biases or to call them out. A good defense attorney will call that out when somebody's tipping the scales of justice, as you will. And so that happens in science as well. That's built into calibration processes to make sure that you can, and that's part of being honest and say, we bring these biases. So what are you doing they're called determinate and indeterminate errors in science. And so there's mechanisms to deal with that. You got to be honest about it. But the problem is when those biases start governing, right, Karen? So you got to work on that because.
Why'd you start this? See what you did?
Well, it's a conversation that leads to every single thing that we're going to be talking about today. And I don't know, I'm still confused. I mean, like when Oprah says there are many ways, and then Talarico says there are many ways, it's like the Hollywood version of what you want to believe, but the earthly things that you want to believe in your God, whoever you choose.
I think my own humble opinion on that, I think people are attracted to the idealistic biblical God, the Christian God. I think it's attractive because he can know you. He presents himself as a father, and he loves you, and he sacrificed for you, and he gave it all for you. He bankrupted heaven, as we say, for all people, even people that hate him, if they give an opportunity to say yes to him. And then the idea of eternity with this loving father in bliss that we can't imagine. I mean, Scripture mentions things, but we can't imagine what it is. And so I think people are attracted to that because in Islam, it's not that way. You can never know Allah, and he can change his mind at the last minute, and you never know if you're in. You can't do enough things good. And then the way to get to him or his ideals of being a perfect Islamic person suck. I mean, if you really look at it, it just does. I mean, and I think people, progressive and conservative, can say, I don't like that. I still don't like you, but I don't like that. I wish we could agree to that. And it's not conducive for a constitutional republic. I think we've seen that experiment play out. And I think that's an objective statement. There's no malice in what I'm saying. I'm just being objective when I say that. So I think people are attracted to the Christian idea of a creator, but they're like, I don't like this exclusive. I want to be my own God. So I want to use you, but I want to make me my own God. Because look, the atheist believes in God, small g. It's just them. And I'll leave it at this, and we'll get into the topics you want to do. I was having a discussion. You can call it a debate with an acquaintance, and we were talking about why can't I be a good person and not be a Christian? I go, you can. You just can't justify why you're a good person. What are you rooting that to?
Right.
What's your definition of good and bad? And he goes, it's just known. So we're just all instilled because I can talk to you. I can give you some tribe that eats their neighbor instead of loves their neighbor. So which one is it? Where'd they get that from? Who instilled that in them? It just happens. You leave people unattended to their own demise, to their own self, and then you have cannibalism, so to speak, and literally. So I said, he was married, and I said, may I use you as an example? Yeah. So why can't your wife go to your neighbor and just bang him? I asked permission. I wasn't being rude. He's like, what do you mean? It's just wrong. Why is it wrong? Which is wrong? Says who? Who says it's wrong? What if your wife is attracted to your neighbor? She has this sexual desire. We should never stop this unbridled sexual desire. She should act on her impulses. Let her go to your neighbor and bang him. What's wrong with that? Well, it's just wrong. So what's so special about your marriage but nobody else's? Why is it wrong for you but nobody else? And then who are you to make up the rules? How selfish of you. Man, you're an elitist making up these rules, trying to limit your wife. How misogynistic of you. I used his own arguments against him. And he's like, I go, the point is that you're saying that your marriage is sacred, but nobody else's is? I mean, that sure is selfish and self-serving. And then so we're okay with someone making up the rules. It just has to be us. The Christian says, I'm not okay with me making up the rules. I'm going to go by the principles that Jesus modeled for us. He doesn't just say, do as I say. He says, do as I did, and he modeled it. So he led us, not managed us. A leader shows you how to live and do and work. A manager tells you, and Jesus doesn't do that. And so that's it. So, I mean, I know you didn't want me to get into a sermon, but I'm just telling you I think that's why people are attracted to the idea of the biblical Christian God, but they're not attracted to doing it his way, so they want to make him in their image. My 2 cents.
Yes.
No, that's right. Being attracted to the idea of something versus being attracted to something are different things.
Amen.
But
And
I
so
love that you asked
Talarico
him
is
why.
attracted to the idea of Christianity, which is basically remade in his image, but he's not teaching Christian doctrine. I mean, when you talk about the
Obviously.
love of God,
Right.
there's a whole doctrine on what the love of God means, which has no definition apart from the wrath of God, because a truly loving person or God will punish the unrighteous. But nobody wants to talk about it. It doesn't make any sense to say that somebody is loving unless when faced with gross injustice, he won't punish that injustice. And so there's a whole doctrine around it. So the idea is one thing, but the reality's another. And so he's trafficking in ideas, which he literally pulls out of his ass. And nobody knows. And he's banking, I should say, Nico. I think he's banking on general ignorance.
Yeah.
When you
On-
say
on-
ass, are you talking about the one in the manger or?
Yeah, not that ass actually. So I think he's there's a cultural politic, there's a zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, and he's floating on that. He's he's kind of using that to define Christianity in his image for political gain. And that's the problem with ignorance, which is what
All right.
this show is designed to
No
combat.
no charge for that.
Speaking
sermon.
of
Go ahead.
which,
Okay, so
No.
I have to eat. Yes, we're going to talk about Iran. Yes, we're going to talk about Trump. Yes, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court. But everybody wants to know, Nico, about James Brennand, that case. I know that you're not a revenge or I told you so guy, but I am. And when all of that happened and when they threw this case out, I was like, there was no case. Isn't that what Nico said in the beginning? Can you, for anybody that doesn't
Yeah.
know about the case, can you explain the background?
So James Brennand was the culmination of a series of failed prosecutions by this horrible district and cowardice district attorney Joe Gonzalez and his crew and the Civil Rights Division, all this other bullshit that he put in there. And it starts the Civil Rights Division. It's been dismantled, by the way, because it's an embarrassment. And there's 0 prosecutions in the Civil Rights Division that's doing such good work. But then the citizens of Bexar County told them to go pound sand. So James Brennand is an officer that was prosecuted for initially attempted murder. People forget about that. But then yet he's the one that saved the Eric Kentu's life when he shot him. So you can't kind of want to kill somebody but then save their
Save
life.
them.
It's like, that's weird. Because no one's thinking over there because they got like 2 brain cells and nobody's using it because they're ideologically, been taken over. So James sees a car the night before this incident. He sees a BMW that has a license plate that doesn't match. That's actually a traffic violation. It's reasonable suspicion, a reason to pull someone over to see, hey, maybe this is a stolen vehicle. That's very typical in that area. That's policing. That's what cops do. And they've done that many times. You pull over a car and then you find maybe a trafficked child in there, or you find drugs, or you find a dead body, whatever. But it could lead to something, and you have a right to look into that. Why would a license plate not match?
Yeah.
So he tries to pull the car over. The car evades arrest in a vehicle, which is a third-degree felony, then goes 90 miles an hour at some point in that incident with his lights off, which could put everyone in danger, puts the community in danger. SAPD has a no-chase policy, and so he backs off. He calls it in, and he calls in the license plate and just says, I'm not going to continue this endeavor. The next day, James is called out to a McDonald's because of a disturbance call. Had nothing to do with Kentu. And then he gets there looking for the disturbance, and he's walking around asking, have you seen somebody? He looks over, you see the body cam, and he sees that car. He knows the license plate. He just chased it. Followed it the night before. And he calls it in. He says, there's the car from last night. The engine's on. So this person, this car, allegedly, the night before, evaded in a vehicle, and the vehicle's on, so not a lot of time. Not going to wait for backup. There's nothing in his police procedure that says you have to wait for backup. The penal code, not policy, rules in the state of Texas, and even for police officers. So he goes in full uniform, goes over there, opens the door, and says, get out. Now, there's a girlfriend in the car. Kentu says no or why. You can debate on what he says, but he says something and then backs up. The car doors open. It actually hits James, which is an aggravated assault against a peace officer, injures his leg. The girl in the car later tells law enforcement that night, says, I thought the officer was going to get drugged under the vehicle. And so did James, by the way. Yeah. He draws his weapon only because of his own athleticism, by God's grace, whatever you want to call it, speed, reaction, balance. He doesn't get drugged under the car. If he gets drugged under the car, that kid is being charged with capital murder, okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
And this never happens. But because James survived, got injured, but didn't get injured seriously, he gets prosecuted apparently. So he backs up, he gets hit by the car, he's bruised, his leg is injured, he draws his weapon, fires 5 times. And the government's position was those first 5 shots were justified. But the second 5 shots weren't, which is insane. Because then the car stops. James is under the impression he's going to reach for something. He can see something happening. Things happen all the time. You can look at the case of Bobby Deckard, a SAPD officer that was chasing somebody into Atascosa County from 700 feet away. That idiot shot through the windshield, hit just by horrible happenstance, hits Bobby in the head and kills him. It's a capital murder. From 700, not 9 feet away, 700 feet away. Every officer knows that. This car stops. He thinks he's stopping to kind of engage him or to run him over again. So he shoots a second 5 shots. Okay, as he's stopping and getting away. So 2 things, under 931, 933, defense, self-defense, use of deadly force, we believe he was justified, and he was. I mean, anybody that was going to testify for the government is foolish or bought out or ideologically taken over and whatever. And then under 951, another statute, when you're talking about fleeing, a suspect fleeing, there's a couple, I'll give you the precedent for that. A felony was committed in its presence and of a violent nature. Deadly conduct, ag assault against a peace officer, aggravated assault, that's violence in his conduct. That's number 1. Then the suspect is fleeing, which he was doing that. And then the officer thinks that the flight is presented as substantial risk to the public. Well, under 951, which nobody analyzed under 951 because everybody had tunnel vision. And I'll tell you why. Because then there's something called the Ren Collective out of Austin, this organization backed up by Soros-funded, that you can tie that, and all this was going to become relevant, by the way, and come in, is instructing Joe Gonzalez and his puppet, Christian Hendrickson, or whatever his name is, his first assistant, to do things. And we had the emails, we had the text messages. KSAT broke the story last year. It was embarrassing. It was shameful for any DA to be controlled by anything other than justice and the Constitution and the Penal Code and the citizens of Bexar County, not Travis County or some hack organization. And so then nobody analyzed it. So our position was James could defend himself under 931, self-defense, aggravated assault against a peace officer, and then under 951 could have done what he did also. More analysis. There's a guy named Miguel Moreno, police officer, who was murdered by this individual and Officer Cavazos. And this happened, he just shot Moreno, he shot Cavazos, and as the guy was running away, Cavazos gets up, and then as he's running away, shoots at him and hits him in the glute, in the buttocks. And then the guy can't walk anymore. He's paralyzed for a moment and then shoots himself in the head. Nobody was demanding to prosecute Cavazos. I wouldn't have. I was the DA at the time. But nobody commanded to. He was running away. The assaults had already happened. He didn't know Miguel was murdered. He just knew he was shot and that he was shot. Ag assault against a peace officer. The penal code and the law doesn't look at those situations differently. If he would have opened the door and Cantu would have shot him, is the same as him backing the car up into him. From the eyes of the penal code, but practically people get distracted by that, and then when you have a false narrative once again, and only a piece of a video that is shown, then that narrative just flustered. This kid just eating a burger in his car, and this cop just opens the door and shoots him. No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. You have to look at the night before, that night, 931, 951, and then James and another officer actually save his life. I mean, put the chest. He was a medic in the military. He served our country honorably.
So how did he save his life?
James did.
How?
He put a press. He gave aid. I mean, I'm not a medic, but he put a chest press on. He put, he covered up. He put a tourniquet on. He closed up, to his art. Put a tourniquet on his arm and on his leg, and they saved his life. I mean, I don't want to die. You're not going to die. I'm sorry. I mean, he's apologizing because he knew what he did. But then this little shit keeps doing stuff. He got arrested like 7 times since then. T-bones another family, a mom and her daughter, while he's evading arrest again, evades arrest again, beats the hell out of this young lady. But because the DA's office was trying to give him such a benefit, instead of charging him with ag assault, SBI, serious bodily injury, which it was, and everybody will objectively say it was, they charged him as a misdemeanor. Everybody gave him a chance over and over and over, conferring him benefits because Joe Gonzalez and the hacks that work for him, not all of them, these civil rights hacks, Daryl Harris and these idiots, just haven't seen a cop they don't want to prosecute. Now, look, I hold cops accountable every day. I just crossed the shit out of a cop last week in trial. I did it professionally and respectfully, but I took him to task, and I held him accountable, and we were successful in a trial. I mean, so I'm not for. I mean, when I was DA, I had law enforcement integrity unit. I want integrity in law enforcement. We prosecuted the cops that needed to be prosecuted. They gave all the other ones a bad name, and we preserved the ones that should be preserved. But the institution of law enforcement is good. It's good. We need law enforcement, and good. We need good law enforcement. We need more training. So the Ren Collective is giving. Man, I'm telling you guys, I hope you guys do your research. It's shameful. They gave him talking points. They told him to do press conferences. They told him what to do, dismiss Cantu's case and do this. And so James wasn't indicted or prosecuted. They walked a warrant. And look, Bill McManus, and even though I like Bill, he was complacent in all this shit also. the whole, and then so days later he gets arrested. He wasn't even a suspect. Cantu was charged with aggravated assault against a peace officer. Joe tells people, I'm going to dismiss the case so the family can visit him before he passes away. Allegedly, but that's not true. He dismissed it because the Ren Collective told their puppet to dismiss it. That's exactly what happened. It's shameful. If he was a Republican, I would take his nuts the same way. I don't care what you are. You cannot be a district attorney and be controlled by any organization or anything other than the principles of Lady Justice. The blindfold, the sword, the scales, the foot on the book, smashing out evil, stepping on the, and then what's right based off the penal code and the facts, answering to the citizens of the community that you represent, and making sure you're doing what's right, not what's easy. That should govern, and whether everybody attacks you or not, tough. Then don't run for the position. If you ran to be liked by everybody, don't fucking run. Go do something else. Go work for a nonprofit, do something else where everyone can like you and you can pass out meals on wheels. Good for you. Go do that. Put your little hat on and go do that. But don't be the DA. Look, you're going to piss people off. There's no way. I mean, if you're not pissing someone off, you're not being a good DA. Now, you're not trying to piss people off, but there's always people from a position. You always make time for people. You meet with people that you don't like. You go visit people. You let people know that even though you don't support me, I still represent you. And I'm going to protect you and make sure that you have a right to disagree with me. And that's what a DA should do. It's very principally based for me, and it's not politically based. So, sorry for the rant, but we were very passionate about this case because this was horribly done. This was a stupid theory. They did not analyze it under the full spectrum of the law, meaning 931 and 951. And then the false narrative went forward again, just like it was in those other police officer cases that we represented. And it's shameful. And it's absolutely shameful to be controlled the way he was, like a puppet. And good for KSAT 12 to break the story back then. They did it. And I want to give honor to KSAT 12 because they went to the mats on this deal and they revealed it all.
3 follow-up questions for you.
Go ahead.
First question is, there was a claim out there that the officer didn't properly identify himself. And so he didn't know when he opened the door that he was an officer.
Okay, give me the statute.
Is that accurate? I mean, is it accurate that he didn't?
Let me give you the facts. He opened the door and said, "Get out," and he's wearing a police uniform. Let me tell you what else factored in. Yeah. She said in the interview, the girlfriend, she said in the interview while they were eating their burger, they saw James come into the parking lot. Now, they didn't know what he was there for, but they saw a police vehicle enter and circle the parking lot. Now, he wasn't looking for them, so they knew there was a cop there. So they knew there was a cop and he's in full uniform. How does she know it was a cop and he didn't? There's nothing that says you have to identify yourself. That's more of a tactical, practical thing to do. That's not a legal requirement.
Could the difference be that they saw an actual police officer in a police vehicle and this guy just sees a guy, frame of reference, this guy just sees a guy open a door and identify himself and his adrenaline kicked in and couldn't properly, apart from a specific identification that he's a police officer, that could easily be clouded by the average person?
In fairness, maybe, other than the fact that he saw a cop and he knew he ran from a cop the day before, and he ran from cops 3 times after, it doesn't fit the bill. But yes, in fairness, objectively, that could be it. Although she knew it was a cop, he was right there. I mean, if you look at the video, he's like this. I mean, if I go like that and I see someone in uniform, I know they're a cop. He's got his uniform on, he's got his badge, he's got his emblem on, he's wearing a gun, he's got a belt. I mean, he knew it was a cop.
Yeah.
He knew it was a cop, and he saw the cop enter the parking lot. So he knew the cop was in a parking lot. He knew he ran from a cop, not that cop, the night before, and then he knows the door.
I think what you're saying makes sense. That was the first question I had.
But that doesn't change the analysis legally, but just so you know.
I'm always wondering if it does. That's why I asked you.
Great question. So he still backs up on the cop. Then if you look at a reasonable cop standard, police person standard, police officer opens the door, and then he gets hit by a vehicle. He gets assaulted by a vehicle. So he responds with deadly force from deadly force. So the analysis doesn't change.
That was my second question.
The analysis doesn't change.
So he claims put the cars in reverse. He's kind of dragging the officer. The officer shoots him 10 times. Is your argument that
shoots at him 10 times?
Is your argument that he didn't hit him 10 times? How many times did he hit him?
I don't know. I can get that for you, but I don't know exactly.
But is the argument that is not excessive use of force? So they're trying to say, hey, man, come on, the first 5 were okay, the second 5 weren't. That's what they're saying. It's an excessive use of force. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard you talk in other forums about that, and that's an issue you care deeply about.
Yeah, I do. Okay, but there's a difference between force and deadly force. So if somebody's trying to stab you, how many times can you shoot them? Tell me how many times.
As many times as necessary to stop them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. To stop them,
Right.
you don't get one shot per one thrust. So if you can fire your gun once, you can fire it 10 times.
Yep.
That's just the way the law stands, because you can shoot it. It's like you have 2 shots. Why didn't you shoot the arm? Why didn't you shoot the leg? And when you put people on shoot no shoot scenarios with simulated rounds, they all get killed. Every single one of them. And then the second time they kill somebody too soon, and the third time they kind of get it right.
So the notion
every
of
time
the first 5 is okay, the second 5 is arbitrary and just basically
But
bullshit. It's about as valid as the no less than 3 feet during the COVID era. You just sort of make it up.
Maybe not. It's not made up. No, I want to be fair. I want to be objective.
That's why I'm asking.
You asked me a question that I always bring up on a use of force. If somebody comes up to me and says something, and says something to you, hey George, you fucking suck, blah blah. All right, well you suck too. Well, I'm gonna fucking kick your ass. Hey, get away from me. And then he tries to hit you, and you engage in mutual combat. I want to fight you. Fuck you. Fuck. Let's go fight. So you both go outside like in the old days and you duel. You put your dukes up, and you guys fight. Then you knock him out, because you're going to win in my scenario. You knock him out, and then he's knocked out. The fight's over, and then you start stomping on his head.
Yeah.
You were right until and then once you start stomping on his head, now you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's not this scenario, because it wasn't deadly force initially. And in that scenario, the kid's not going, I give up. Now, if after the first 5 shots, he opens the door and jumps down and says, okay, I'm over, and then he kept shooting him, different. When you're looking at the reasonable belief of apparent danger and is it imminent, that analysis under 931, this scenario was completely justified. If the facts change, if the door opens, okay, I'm hit, and then he keeps shooting him, now James is going to be prosecuted, and I would agree with that prosecution.
So I don't know if this is a textbook legal definition, but basically excessive force is any force used beyond the point where it was necessary to simply stop the individual from being in imminent harm.
You're talking about proportionality, yes.
I
Provocation.
mean, if the guy's down, he's done, he's not a harm, and you're beating the shit out of him.
Yes.
Now you've crossed the line.
That was the whole George Floyd issue, right?
Yeah.
That was the whole thing.
Sure.
That he was handcuffed. Someone's on his
Sure.
legs. He's handcuffed in the back. Why the knee on the neck versus the back? Now, whether
Yeah.
it caused his death or not, I'm just telling you the theory. The theory was he's telling you I can't breathe. Get your knee off my neck. Put it on my shoulder blades, or just hold me with your hand.
I'm
And
glad
that's
you're
the
explaining
argument.
that, because a lot of people, I think, to this day don't actually understand
Yes.
why things went the way they went in that case. And then lastly, I guess the last question I have is, DA is coming back and saying, look, this thing was dismissed because all we were trying to do is to make sure that these other charges that Cantu is facing aren't improperly sort of weighing in on this case. And we needed time to make sure. So we were trying to do justice by our client. And then the court got impatient. You guys stepped in and said, hey, I mean, our client has a right to a speedy trial and so forth. And so what about that argument? The notion that...
We could have at some point said we don't even want to use it. We don't want to use it. Forget about it. Even this investigation that he ended up getting charged with. And I said this. I said, you watch. Now that this case is dismissed, they're gonna indict him. They're gonna walk a warrant on him tomorrow, and I was right.
Yeah,
because it's gonna cover their ass. They didn't give a shit about it before. They could have cared less. They were giving this guy so many benefits. They didn't even care about this. So this investigation came in for ag assault, aggravated kidnapping, whatever, deadly conduct.
Already indicted him?
No, they didn't. I don't know. They walked a warrant on him immediately.
Okay.
I knew they were going to. I told everybody on our team that was going to happen because they want to cover their asses.
Yeah,
that's exactly. But we could have said at some point, if the judge was uncomfortable that there wasn't enough to impeach him under 613 of a rule of evidence, you can impeach someone because the government is conferring a benefit to you or some interest to you. So all of his bullshit was going to come into court. All of his 6 gifts that they gave him, the fact that they extended and conferred all these benefits to him so he can prosecute against, testify against a police officer, all that became relevant because it's going to, theoretically, we could argue that it influenced his testimony to give the government a benefit so they can benefit him. Mm-hmm. So if they said we can't properly defend against it, we could have said, we're not even going to use it. We got plenty of other stuff to use. Not to mention we have the facts on our side. We didn't need a shitty complainant to defend James Brennand. We didn't need that. We happened to have a shitty complainant, but we didn't need one. We were going to defend him on the facts and the law, and they weren't analyzing the whole spectrum of the law. Does that make sense?
All right. When they talk about refiling the case, I mean...
They're not refiling anything. I mean, they're not going to refile this case. Number two, for two reasons. I think. I mean, the judge can do what he wants, and we'll cross that bridge if we get there. But you have James Brennand sitting there with his lawyers, me and Jason Goss, and they're saying, 4 years we've been waiting, Judge. No, we went back and forth in an argument of why we can go forward. We can use what we can use this time. Look how quick they walked these warrants.
I know.
So look, they walked the warrant. Trial was supposed to start Monday. So they could have walked this warrant Monday, and this whole game we've been playing, this circus, on we got to finish the investigation bullshit. Well, they finished it quick. How quick did they finish it when they needed to cover their ass?
This was always part of the plan.
It was always part of their plan. So Monday, we start trial Monday. We would have been prepping this whole time. They should have, theoretically, they should have walked the warning. So when they're saying we still need to finish, well, somebody was bullshitting the DA's office, allegedly, because they walked that warrant. I wonder why that happened so quickly. And they didn't know that was going to happen? Well, now we're good, so let's start that trial on Monday. So it was all a facade.
Right.
But so aside from that, you have James and Judge Perez did a great job on this. He said, Mr. Brennand, we asserted his right, which we can as his counsel, but Judge Perez did something different. He said, Mr. Brennand, are you asserting your right to speedy trial? 4 years. He goes, yes, sir, I am. He goes, denied your motion for continuance. So you have an assertion of a constitutional right of a speedy right, and then they're going to dismiss so they can circumvent someone's constitutional right to now that we've investigated this better and we're going to come forward. Bullshit. We would file a motion to bar prosecution for want of speedy trial and for them, not giving him his speedy trial and trying to circumvent his speedy trial. And the judge will make his ruling, and we would appeal it if it was an adverse ruling, but. It's complete bullshit. This is a game with this DA's office.
What happens next to James? I mean,
he's going to have to prayerfully consider what he wants to do, whether he comes back into law enforcement in some form or fashion or what. But look. There's a piece of me that wanted to take the DA's office to task. That's just the fighter in me, and I wanted to expose them, not out of revenge. Not out of malice, for justice' sake. I wanted for truth and justice. Let it, whatever the chips fall, they fall. I wanted to expose them. So I would have loved to try this case against any. They could put the whole office on the other side. Put the whole fucking office on the other side. Bring Joe Gonzalez's little weak ass, pansy ass down there. I'd try the case. Well, he was going to be a witness, by the way, so he couldn't try the case. We were going to subpoena him, cross-examine him and Christian about the Ren Collective and how they were being their puppets. I wouldn't have called them that, but it would have made the point. And so they knew all this stuff.
Yeah.
But so there's something inside the justice, the fighter in me wanted that. But what's best for James was this result. So God's grace abounded. Judge Perez made the right call, and the DA's office did what they did. And it's not the ADAs that handled the case. Neil, it's not his fault. Nicole, it's not her fault. It's not them. It's the hack that calls himself the DA that's going to be out of here in January.
well, the whole disrespect to law enforcement, it brings me to a lot of the questions that a lot of the viewers right now are asking about, and that's Justice Barrett. And everybody's questioning, is there some sort of threat against her? Why is she now asking for money for protection? And a lot of us have speculated that there were threats and that they could have tainted her decisions recently, and probably to a lot of people said, why did she make that decision? What's going on with her? Why is she making decisions against what you would normally have believed? These threats to the Supreme Court, they've been coming pretty quickly for the last several years. And it just shows you about, law enforcement, what kind of respect do they have anymore?
I grew impatient during the hearing. I just was beyond frustrated. I almost threw stuff at the TV and busted it because I was just so irritated. So nobody thought during this meeting to point out where these attacks are coming from. I don't know. It seemed to me reasonable to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm so sick and tired of the both sides bullshit. This is not a both sides problem. This is overwhelmingly, if not totally, because I don't know every single one, but in terms of the ones that actually made the press or made the airwaves, this is entirely coming from the left. All of it. Where do you want to start? Please, where do we see vandalization, destruction of property? Where do we see people accosting others violently on the street? Where is that coming from conservatives? Where? By the way, if it was, every single American would know, because the media would employ behind that news article. So we don't see this coming from the conservative side. This is all almost entirely coming from the left, and nobody thought to point it out. Let's talk about the budget. Hey man, FYI, you can't possibly have enough money. If this becomes mainstream, and politicians don't speak up and call shit out for where it is, for where it's coming from, where are the attacks to Supreme Court justices coming from? Where are the conservatives marching on Capitol steps? Where? The 2020 riots, were they conservatives? The assassination attempts against Brett Kavanaugh, were they from conservatives? The squatting event against Amy Coney, swatting event against Barrett, was that from a conservative?
And why aren't we here? We're not hearing about all of them because they're not being reported on.
The ones that we have heard of,
Yeah.
Karen, from the onset, where do you want to start? Should we go back to the gun down of Steve Scalise in 2017? I always think about that because that seems to just kind of ramped up significantly since then. Did that come from a conservative? I mean, that was a Bernie Sanders supporter who was a complete lunatic. There's been 3 assassination attempts on this president. There's nothing even comparable on the other side. This is all coming from the left, and we better deal with the reality that this is not a bug. This is feature. This is a feature to that worldview, and the Democrat Party is complicit in buoying this worldview. It cuts right through the center of it. And you got Steny Hoyer sitting there. Have you considered whether there's enough money in your budget? No, asshole, I haven't. Except to say there's never enough money in my budget because this is standard operating procedure for your party. And you're I just grew so irritated during the whole thing. I had to turn the damn thing off and read the rest of it.
To George's point, Karen, I would love to see the old school traditional Democrats take back the party. I really would. I wish they were not running out of Federer. I wish they didn't run out. I'm glad. I like Gabbard and Kennedy and Bobby, but they shouldn't. Because you're losing that balance of power and that back and forth you want.
Yeah.
I know some good level-headed Democrats or people that vote Democrat that aren't for all this crap. The problem is this is where it's going. To George's point, and if you've got to bring this decency back, there has to be decency back. This Democrat social America, this mindset, this progressive movement where violence is accepted and you can foment violence. You should never do that. You should never. You just can't. I wouldn't support it on the right, left, but to George's point, just do a 1-for-1. Just look at it objectively. Where is it coming from? It's coming more from the left. And I would love people that are on that party to say, no, that's not acceptable. We're not going to let that happen. You're not going to do that to our party.
And allow me, Nico, to just double down on that. Unless you have a contention, we can argue about it, and I'm okay with it. But it's not that it's coming more from the left. It's coming overwhelmingly from the left.
Fair enough.
That's why I ask. It's a legitimate question. We got people that are listening. They're not all conservatives.
Right.
And I ask a question. Where are the conservatives doing this shit? Where are the attacks coming from conservatism?
Well,
the violent attacks coming from where?
Who's the guy that shot those lawmakers?
You're talking about Melissa Hortman. He was not a conservative.
Okay, why would he go after those people then?
I don't know, but he was not. But he was not a conservative.
What was his background?
He's on the left. He's not a conservative person. You're talking about Melissa Hortman and her husband.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's it.
Right. And this is the way the media spun it.
What about
and
Kathy,
then the damage was
what's
done.
that other Democrat that was shot? Kathy.
You're talking about Gifford.
Gifford.
He was not a conservative person. He was an independent. He was not a conservative person.
What was his voting record?
Yeah, independents lean. I don't know, but he was not a conservative person.
I'm just asking.
I know that. I know that definitive. That was in 2011. Mm-hmm. And so we got to go back. That's an excellent point. We got to go back 15 years to ambiguity to find one. And yet but wherever you want to go, whether it's attacks on this president, attacks on Brett Kavanaugh, the assassination attempts on Supreme Court justices. I remember the women's marches. I remember those, and attacks on the Capitol, attacks on the steps of the Supreme Court. Hundreds of arrests. Those were not conservatives. So, and then I don't even get into Islamofascism in the country because I'm talking about political violence. But if you want to talk about the overwhelmingly greatest source of political murder in the country, that's 80 to 90% deaths that come committed by Islamic radicals.
Yeah.
And under what party do Islamic radicals find a lot of comfort in?
Militants.
Yeah, okay. Where, though? What party? Are they lining up to run under the conservative? I don't recall seeing a whole lot of Hamas flags or Allahu Akbar flags or Death to America flags at conservative rallies. Where are they aligning ideologically? Don't think too hard.
Well, and someone made this point. It's not me. Someone smarter than me made the point a long time ago that when, not that I'm making a comparison between George Floyd and Charlie Kirk, but after the George Floyd situation, the response was one way. After Charlie Kirk's situation, the response was a very different way. So you have this idea. So when your ideas are challenged, you put stress to an idea, you find out. Here's what I tell people all the time.
Legit point.
I've never been proven wrong. Not because I'm so smart. It's just a truism that God has baked into the human experiment. If you want to find out someone's true character, give them power or problems. You'll find out who they are. Power, you give Democrats power, you find out who they really are. You give Islamic movement power, you find out who they really are. And you give them problems, meaning grief, hurt, whatever, challenge, you find out who they are. You have riots and destruction when there's something when an injustice, the argument of an injustice happening. And then over here on Charlie Kirk, you have prayer vigils and you have gatherings and you have this outpouring of love. So now you have stressed out an ideology, and now you see what happens: power or problems. Power when you're in control, problems when you think
What
you're
an
not.
excellent point. The exploitation of a terrible event, the death of George Floyd, and the exploitation of that led to the Black Lives Matter riots, and I'm talking about BLM Incorporated, against police and courthouses and local governments and businesses across the country. We're talking about across the country, over 10,000 arrests. There were 300 federal charges that were brought. There were dozens of assault on police. There were people that died. There were over $2 billion in damage.
To black communities.
Right. Exactly right. This did not come from the right.
Yeah.
That's the point. This was a hodgepodge of BLM and other Marxist groups like Antifa perpetrated on the country.
Yeah.
A tragedy that was exploited for political power. This is the future. This is the future if these people get into power. So I'm glad that we've seen it in the sense that we can actually see what we'll be getting ourselves into. But the idea that sorry to interrupt you, this idea this whole hearing happened, Nico, where nobody thought to call out where this is coming from, it's stunning to me. It was frustrating as hell.
But why have the Democrats just given in to whatever they are, communist, socialist, democratic, socialist? Why have the
Because they want to
original Democrats given into that?
Because they're
That's the answer.
survivalists. They want power.
Even if it's something that they
Look, you can't explain the dichotomy, the split in Obama in 2008, in Biden his whole career, in Schumer, in Pelosi, in Feinstein, in Reid, all these traditional Democrats that were liberal Democrats, old school liberal Democrats, and what they were arguing back then. And then you replay those videos. Thank God for video. You're like, you're not a Democrat today. That's what a Democrat. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, all of them. You could, I mean, people have done it smarter than me. Someone like them can do that. You put together this list of all these videos and what they're advocating for. Those are not Democrat principles today, but they were Democrats, and they were the core of the Democrat power back then. What happened? Do you think they really changed their principles in their 60s, 70s, and 80s? Really? No one does that. Yep. I mean, you might tweak it.
What happens to those Democrats that are going along to get along, but then become not left enough? Because that is happening.
They get primaried.
They're going to get eaten by the whole thing, by the monster that they've created.
They get primaried, and exactly. I mean, they say, I can have a pet rattlesnake. Of course I can. I just love that my rattlesnake doesn't like my neighbor, and my neighbor's scared of my rattlesnake. So now when you're alone with your rattlesnake, guess what happens? Your rattlesnake bites you. I mean, so that's exactly what's happened. You can't.
It's so weak.
This is a very important point. The Democrats have adopted a politics, again, as we've said many times in here. I want people to, if you forget everything else we say about this, remember this. It's a politics of power, not of persuasion. They want to drive change through revolution, not reform. That's very, very different. And so there's a culture of political violence that they've created, and it'll come to the point where they will be consumed by it. This belief that justice requires the forceful dismantling of the entire system through revolution. They want to burn the system down. They can't build anything, but this notion of destroying and decimating is part of the DNA of the left. It's in the DNA of the left. As intense as it is for conservatives, for instance, to preserve the ordered rule or ordered liberty, as intrinsic to our DNA as that is, to maintain the rule of law and the integrity of our traditional institutions in a country, that's impulsive from conservatism. It's just as impulsive on the left for them to want to burn things down to the ground. That's been the case. We can go back to the French Revolution in 1789, and we don't have to go back that far. We can go back to Russia in 1916 and 7. This is Bolshevism in America. It's just part of the DNA. It's part of the worldview. And so we have to recognize what we're dealing with. It's always been the case. And so what are we going to do to address it? And I don't know, Nico, how in the world we can do that if we're not willing to call it out. And they're there to talk about assaults on the Supreme Court. And I realize they talk about other sources of attacks like cybersecurity, et cetera. But primarily at Focus, because she's talking about having to explain to her son why she was wearing a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
She goes, I never dreamed that signing up for this job required doing that.
How did you not dream that? How'd you not dream that in this day and age?
In this day and age.
How'd you not dream
in this
that?
day and age? Right.
So I know there's criticism, and I heard some people talk about it. So I want to, George, you tell me if this is true or not. Someone made the claim that when she got on the court, that she voted 80-something% conservative on traditional issues, and then now it's dropped down to like 50-something and change percent. Is that because? Remember, I said last week on the show or the week before, I said, "Man,
somebody's threatening."
Yeah,
her.
on
You
Birthright,
said it.
I just said, "Man, is she intimidated? How does it not wear on you that you got to live? I mean, look, it's different. I mean, do you have bulletproof windows? I mean, this and that. You can't just go to a restaurant anymore. It's completely different." Now, there's a group of people who are going to say, "Hey, tough shit, man. You knew what you were signing up for. Then step down. No one's going to criticize you. You have kids. You have a family first. Your family is your first priority. So if she had to step down, I think people would respect that, to do that. But I don't think that she's considered a conservative justice. I think she would fall in the camp of a moderate. Now, did she vote to change Roe? She did. So you can't criticize her too much. But I think the way it looks like from the outside, and I want to be really fair about that, it looks like she tries to weigh these things out. Like, I'm going to give them this one. I'm going to take this one. This one I can't compromise on. That's just the way it seems to me. And when you have any person in power of the justice system, whether you're a judge, a prosecutor, whatever, doing that, in my opinion, the blindfold's there for a reason. It means something. And if you cannot adhere and honor the principle of the blindfold on Lady Justice, the goddess Themis, the goddess of order, which that's just what it represents. It doesn't mean we worship a Greek goddess. But I'm just saying that's what it represents, order. And we don't see anything. We don't see political violence. We don't see political parties. We don't see anything. We get the facts, the law. We analyze the law, and she's supposed to be setting the tone for the law that lower courts and prosecutors and defense lawyers are supposed to apply in a court of law and before juries.
Yeah.
This is huge stuff.
I wanted to understand her years ago because she fascinated me. And if you remember when her nomination was up, I was a big supporter on paper, at least on paper. I thought, man, this reads really good. And I liked that she had clerked for Scalia and that she was an originalist in his tradition. She's part of 6 of the 9 justices have clerked for other Supreme Court justices. That's kind of an elite of the elite. And so I had huge expectations for her. I also got her book and I read it, Listening to the Law, as the book that she wrote, just to give me some insights. And I see a person who's interesting. She seems to be at least philosophically wedded to the notion that you do not legislate from the bench. Okay, you don't do that. Okay, and the way she talks about it, she actually talks about the court in a very originalist sense. I'm not a big fan of the whole notion of co-equal branches with the executive. I don't believe the court is co-equal with the executive. I think it's subversive to the executive. I do. I think it's a whole other discussion. I think the framers kind of couched it in those terms. And she actually makes that point in the book that she doesn't see the federal judiciary as a place where everybody just sort of immediately goes to resolve their problems. That's why you have congressmen. That's why you elect people. That's your first stopping ground.
So
and then you have
the Supreme Court is what to the executive?
I think in terms of as a branch, it's there as a checkpoint, but it's not on equal footing.
Adversarial.
Yeah, but it's not on equal standing with the executive. They're not all presidents. They don't have equal power to the president of the United States.
Right.
And she actually makes that point very eloquently and ably in her book. So, and I pulled out a caption from the book, and I wanted to share it with you. She says, a court, Nico, is not a legislative assembly. It's not a town square or faculty lounge. She said, Article 3 of the Constitution, which establishes the judiciary branch, does not contemplate a system where 330 million citizens can come to a federal court whenever they believe that the government is acting contrary to the Constitution or the federal law. She says, vindicating the public interest, including the public interest in government observance of the constitutional laws, is the function of the Congress and the chief executive. So even there, she's acknowledging that the court is kind of subordinate to those elected representative positions, if you will. And so she seems to be dogged against the notion of legislating, and yet when she brought up things like Obergefell or Obamacare, where the court clearly, it seems to me, prima facie is legislating from the bench, she doesn't really call that out. So you have a person who seems to have some strong philosophical convictions, but when the heat is applied, she's nowhere to be found. And so I wonder what explains that other than fear.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you haven't had time to look this up. The people making this claim said they looked at her voting record and said that she was 80-something% in certain areas considered quote unquote conservative, traditionalist, and then dropped down. I don't know. I did not verify that. I'm just saying that's the claim. If that's the claim, I sensed it. Remember a couple of weeks ago, especially with birthright citizenship. And knowing what Democrats argued about birthright citizenship in the past, which is interesting to me. But and then what the Constitution really says about that and the history behind the Constitution, even though, like Mark Antoine, people that we respect so much and we like, and I think we're going to go to lunch eventually. So you're going to message me when he gets back in town. He said, "Yep, please do that, Mark. I look forward to that fellowship." But when you look at the writer of that article, that's not what his intent was. When you look at legislative intent, and then the government, the Supreme Court is supposed to translate that, interpret that, and then set a standard. I don't know. You see her take these positions, and my sense 2 weeks ago is she seems like she is not governing because she doesn't govern from there. That she's making rulings in intimidation. It seems that way to me. And look, it's real, guys. I mean, unless you've been in a position like that and gotten real death threats, and had to have really people, keep an eye, then
and having your kids exposed.
Everybody, it's all theory to people. And I'm not saying that you don't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying, try to put yourself in their shoes. But then my counter to that is, Justice Barrett, I get that. That is legitimate. Then prayerfully consider stepping down. I mean, in my opinion, unless she says, "Look, I've changed my opinion," piss off Nico LaHood and George Rubio, fair enough too. I'm cool with that. But then,
fair enough.
I want to know how your philosophical framework has changed. That coincides, apparently, correlation, maybe not causation, to this very hostile environment we have. And to George's original point, Karen, this is not the way we want to go. Yeah. I would defend. I mean, I'm talking about passionately. If anybody did that to Democrats, I would stand in front of them. I don't care who you put any Democrat up. Name the Democrat. Joe Gonzalez. I would do the same thing for Joe. I would defend him. I would say, don't you dare do this bullshit. You fight in the arena of the political arena, in the public square, in debate, in free exchange of ideas. That's your sparring, ring. But no physical contact on that person. He has a right to be his way. I have a right to call it out. If someone breaks a law, you hold them accountable. They get due process. They get a right to a jury trial. They cross-examine. All the stuff that I believe in. But you don't do physical violence because that changes the game. Then it becomes survival of the fittest, and we're a jungle. And now it's not who's right. It's who's strongest. And now you're in trouble. I'm telling you, you're in trouble. Republicans, Democrats, everyone's in trouble if that's where we're at. So that's where we should all agree on.
And it's self-perpetuating. It's very difficult to come back from that edge. But I love what you said. The birthright citizenship, man, really left sour grapes in my mouth, and I think the overwhelming number of people in the country. I want to call out, you call out some other individuals. I want to call out Robert Jimenez. Dom, he wrote some thoughtful comments supporting the decision by the court in our Facebook page.
Oh, okay.
And I sat down to respond to it, and I got through about 3/4 of it, and I got pulled off to do something. And I'm just calling out that I'm going to respond to that. I'm almost done.
Who's Robert Jimenez? Is he someone that watches?
He's just somebody that posted on Facebook. It was a thoughtful post. I think he's dead wrong.
Okay.
But he says, the court got it exactly right. No, the court actually got it exactly wrong.
On birthright citizenship.
Right, on birthright citizenship. And just, Robert, like I said, I owe you a response, and I'm almost there, but I got distracted. But I just want to point out that the notion, if you know nothing about the law, just consider it, the notion that the framers, the founders, particularly the founders of the country, or the framers of the 14th Amendment in 1868, that they had envisaged this notion that birthright citizenship would mean simply a soil argument, that you basically reduce citizenship to soil. Like the notion that that's something that they would have supported and fought for in the aftermath of a civil war, because context is everything. But the notion that all of that would be reduced to, hey, if you're simply born here, you're a citizen.
Home base.
That the idea, that's completely irrational. Please start there. No human being would ever do that for their home,
well, that's what I'm saying.
Their property. Yeah. I mean, the notion that we could extrapolate to the national level and that's somehow rational.
But not to the personal level.
Right.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Robert, I want to tell my friend here, I don't know who he is, but I'll go back and find it. I apologize ahead of time for George's response because you're going to get a thesis paper. I promise you. Poor Robert. But I love that you classify his comment that way. That's how it should be. Respectful.
It was.
And Mark, even in his response, he messaged me privately, and he said, and I want to call. I really appreciate that. that he said, I look forward to sitting down and having lunch with you when I'm in town. I really appreciate that, man. We need to do it that way. And you know how I feel about Alamo Talk. I know his real name, and I've had lunch with him. I know what he looks like. I've fellowshiped with him. We text each other occasionally. And I enjoy my communication with him as well. I do. And it has to be that way. Because there's a lot more things that me and Alamo Talk agree on. I mean, I'm telling you, whether he would want to admit it, and it's not my place to do it, we agree on a lot more than we disagree on. Yeah. The stuff we disagree on, it gets passionate, and we get this, but we agree on a lot more than, and I think a lot of our listeners would agree with them on some of the stuff too.
I do. I mean, I know you're the same way. I love thoughtful disagreements because they cause you, it's not just about disagreeing. They really cause you to kind of rethink your position, to make sure you truly understand your position and you truly defend what you think you're defending. Yeah. A thoughtful disagreement will cause you to do that. And I always welcome that. I love that because I emerge from it. I should a better person. And so that's how I felt. It was a thoughtful.
So you don't like when people yell at each other like you and I do on.
No, that just makes it fun.
I like it.
That just makes it fun. You can be challenged and bored, but you're not bored. I'm not bored.
Who was it? Somebody that was watching. So so there's someone in the room that's guilty of starting their cameras too soon, but I don't give a shit because I mean we're the same way. But so they start. So buddy over here starts the cameras soon, and George and I are having one of our normal conversations, debates, heated, whatever. It's like 10, 15 minutes. Like holy shit, and then I go, let's go ahead and start right now. And they go, we've been started. I said, what are you talking about? I said, we're on. I was like, all right, well then we should have these. And then I had to adjust or whatever. And then I think it was Stryker or somebody. I don't know. Somebody made a comment. They really do like each other.
I know. He's trying to help the audience understand what's
Davi
going
walked
on.
in and said, like, what are you guys doing? Because she was outside with the kids. I was like, we're just doing our thing, man. Don't worry about it.
I know, and when I say he's my brother, I actually mean that. I see him as my brother, and so but I mean that's the cool thing about a brother. You can just sort of unload.
Paul and Peter did it right,
and yes,
and then
you got to
where
feel.
are we going for lunch?
You got to feel free to be an ass.
Yeah.
I mean, you just
he's calling me an ass in a nice way. It's okay.
So seriously, we have to change because
go ahead.
Change away.
Ed is directing the show. He said, please change topics before time runs out.
Sorry, Ed.
Ed, don't worry. We'll stay as long
But
as
he
we want
wanted to talk about Iran, and obviously, all those strikes are going on, the stuff that we knew was going to happen. But
it's not even on the list of topics. We can talk about Iran, but what about Trump?
President Trump, of course, addressed the nation about electoral fraud. And were either of you surprised when you found out that NBC, CBS, and ABC decided hours before that they weren't even going to air it?
Well, there's my defense attorney. If I was going to defend them, and I'm going to be a little sarcastic here, I don't mean this, but I'm just saying, if their defense was, well, we're going to avoid the first 15 to 20 minutes of Trump saying how great things were, that's what we didn't want to show, then I would say, all right, I got it. Because the first 15 minutes kind of pushed my buttons a little bit, how great things are and everything's great, everything's wonderful. Okay, guys, people don't feel that way, but whatever. That's Trumpian talk, but fair criticism, whatever. But
I was irritated by it myself.
It frustrates me. It's like, come on, man. You've lost that air on doing that. I think everybody said okay because they believed you could do it and you did it, but now it's kind of like
fatigue. Trump fatigue.
Trump bragging fatigue.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm going to make up a new term. This
I like it.
Trump bragging fatigue is real. I have a little bit of it, but not everything he said was wrong. He was right about some of the bragging he was doing, but it's like, okay, got it.
On the chief agenda items, he landed, but I mean the whole lead up of everything's fine and wonderful.
No one feels that.
I mean, it's irritating.
We'll be out in 2
It's
weeks.
irritating. Thank you. Yeah, it is. And
it is because you want your leader to validate. I mean, you're not delusional.
Yeah.
Things aren't great, and they could be.
Yep.
I think we're close to it, but it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel that way.
And we'll see in the midterms what happens, but it doesn't surprise many people, and the fact that a media station would decide not to cover that, we're off the rails.
Yeah,
we're off the rails.
Yes.
That's the president of the United States. Yeah. Now, turn the tables. We have to play this thought game. If that was President Biden, or God forbid, if it's President Newsom or AOC or Mamdani, you better wake the hell up. If it's one of them, and then Fox and Max, whatever the hell they want, Newsmax and other organizations decided not to cover that, and they're not even mainstream media. By the way, Fox is, but I mean not mainstream, but it's not ABC, NBC, or whatever, CBS. But decided not to cover it. The criticism would rightfully come towards them, and it would be led by me. Yeah. I would be one of the ones charging ahead at them, saying all this stuff. So I mean, we've got to do better. We've got to say, look, if Trump is such an idiot and frustrated us but I'm still going to support what he's doing. But if it frustrates somebody and turns them away from them, let the chips fall where they may.
I know.
That's what free thought means. And that's what means when you say, like, let's go into the market of ideas, let's go into the arena of debate, and this universal idea that we're in this ring and sharing thoughts, and you can be the way you are and I'm going to be the way I am. And if people don't like me, then that's on me. I'll have to deal with that. Let Trump fall where he falls, but let him talk. I can't stand that. I'm telling you, we're in dangerous waters on this area too. If we have these media outlets, then they're not free press. They're not. They're selective press. You better change the term. Don't say what you are. Don't say you're free press. And you don't believe in free press. And you don't believe in free speech. So guess what? When someone tries to squander and squelch your free speech, NBC, whatever don't bitch about it, because you're doing that to President Trump and to other people that wanted to hear. And like me, I have a right to be irritated by the man. And I was irritated. And then I listened to the rest of the stuff, and he had points that were made, objective points, that whether you like it or not, we should all be against election interference. All of
Gina
us.
said something that really does kind of make sense. She said we should relish in the president's pride of what's going on. And this is not what she said. This is what I'm saying. Because we've already kind of had a president that just points out how much we suck. And that was not good either.
But you can do it in a way that's tempered and more practical. So Gina, to play it out, let's say something's going wrong in your life, Gina, and you got your job, whatever, or your company's not doing well or whatever, and then someone just bragging about stuff, and you and a lot of people aren't doing well, and this person's just talking about stuff
horrible.
That maybe is happening for him, not happening to a lot. I don't know what the polls show on the sentiment of how the direction of the country, but maybe George knows those polls. But it's just poor form. I mean, and then it comes across like you're just bullshitting me. It's the same criticism that I gave to Biden, and I have to be fair about this. When he says that's transitional inflation, it's not inflation. The border's secure. Well, no, it's not. And so we criticized the hell out of them, and nobody cut them off when they said it. They let them play it on, even though they were saying stuff that wasn't accurate and wasn't true. And then we all had a chance to make up our own minds on it. It's the same thing. So I'm not saying that I don't know about relish, but he should point out things that are good. I know American people are not feeling this. I know that they don't understand this transition period or this whatever. There's a bigger thought here. There's a bigger goal here. My goal is for America to be safe long after I'm president. But for my grandchildren, this is not about me. I don't for politicians to sit up here and tell you how you should feel about something, but when everything's fine for politicians, but not for the American people,
That's exactly right.
I take issue to that.
That's exactly right.
That's what you say.
That's
Let me
what you
tell you
say.
what's going good, and let me tell you what's going bad. You say it like that, and then people are like, all right, thank you for you're acknowledging where I'm at, but I see where you're going, and you have a bigger thought here and a bigger thought
And that's
process.
where the irritation comes from, because that's a
yes.
giant missed opportunity to validate what people are feeling, but still give them hope and help them to understand that there's a method to the madness here, that that there's an agenda, and that there's competent people at the helm, and they're trying to think things through and do the best they can with the information that they have, et cetera, that they weren't elected for naught, and so forth, but validate at least how they feel. But man, I just the content was really, really important, really, really important, and the idea that wouldn't be covered by national media, that's just gross. So I don't know. I went back and look at his main assertion. He said the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. And it occurred to me, Karen, there's something like 235 million registered voters in the country. I think it's the Election Alliance Assistance Commission. And so that's virtually all of them. So this is quite an operation. He didn't go so far as to say that they absolutely changed the vote, but he went pretty close to that line and said that they certainly could, and they certainly attempted to. What does that mean? I mean, it makes sense when you have that information and you've got not just people's names, but their voting preferences and their phone numbers and their addresses. And so through cybersecurity mechanisms, it's just one small step to actually being able to not just register a person, but to actually vote on their behalf, because our voting systems are electronic. This is the problem with getting away with a paper ballot system, is that everything's digitalized and everything's electronic. So a part of us is like, well, we kind of knew that, but we didn't. But the Joe Biden administration in 2021 said, oh yeah, not really. We've checked it out and it's not an issue. So there's a contradiction here. Joe Biden in 2021 said it's not an issue, but in 2020 there was an intelligence report that says it is an issue. So why did Joe Biden's administration make it not an issue? So Trump's saying it's there. Why wasn't it followed up on? And then he pointed out that it was suppressed by the intelligence community. Why is that? So now we have partisanship at the helm of intelligence decisions. This should alarm every single American. So legitimate issue,
and
man.
Rogan and Vance talk about it. I thought they did good because Joe asked good questions, and he was talking. They talked about the LA mayor race, and they talked about how the ballots that came in, they were all for the third candidate. That no one can even pronounce the name of the third candidate. And it's like, well, normally the mail-in ballots. And look, I think there should be some. We have absentee voting. We've always had that. That should be fine for the disabled, for the old, for the people that are serving. Those are legitimate reasons to have absentee voting. And that should happen. That should be the only that should be the only mail-in ballots, absentee voting with checks and balances on that. And they're saying how the mayor race, how this third, what's the name of the candidate that passed up all of them, went from third place to now second place, and then of course that guy, what's his name? What's the guy, the Republican that ran for
Spencer.
Thank you. I was thinking of
Spencer Pratt.
Brewster or some shit. Spencer Pratt.
So Karen Bass, Spencer Pratt, and it was 90 or something. I can't remember the.
Well, no one knows her name, but
Indian.
apparently all the mail-in ballot people knew her name, and then
And
she
that's the
just
scandal.
surged.
Right.
She surged.
And in the aftermath of the vote, every single delayed ballot went for her.
Yes.
Which is a statistical
Improbability.
Improbability.
Yes.
I call it impossibility. But,
Fair enough.
But certainly, I mean, it truly is statistically impossible.
Right.
I mean, how does that happen? And no one has an answer to that because there is no statistical answer. And I've done statistical analysis. Give me a freaking break. So it just no, they're not even hiding it anymore.
Well,
that's
that's what Joe and JD. It was look. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. I mean, I think it was good. Like I said, I disagree with some of the things how JD handled it. I think he got more comfortable, and you saw him when he defended the president on Iran, and he really gave a different perspective on that and different stuff. And on Epstein, he gave a different perspective. And I love that Vance said, "I'm a conspiracy theorist." Susie Wiles calls me that. I am, and I've gone down every rabbit hole. And that ate Joe up. And just for him to admit that as vice president, he went into the Epstein stuff, and he was just really. I thought it was very. It made sense, and that's what is needed. I think that JD Vance. I like a little bit more of the toughness of Rubio because I don't think Vance comes across. You need to have a gentle, tough guy, if that makes sense. It's called meekness in Scripture. A gentle, tough guy is the idea of a samurai. A samurai is someone who was chivalrous, who lived by a code, who was respectful, who was humble, but fierce. I mean, a fierce warrior. If you study the samurai as a warrior, but so you don't have to be a cannibal to be a fierce warrior. And I relate to that. Martial arts and combat sports that I've trained in, and I love the idea of a martial artist is someone that is respectful, humble, courteous. But there's a big but is vicious and is formidable and can hurt you if it need be. And I think Vance misses a little bit of that, but he's very relatable when he lets his guard down and doesn't try to get too, and look, I thought it was good overall. I mean, I thought it was good overall.
I did too. I
want
to come back to your point.
What do you think about it? Since you watched it?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean,
not George standards. I'm talking about just regular people standards. Talk to the regular people.
I'm a voter,
George.
too, bro.
Come on.
No, you said a lot in your statement, and I want to have some thoughts on Rubio because he chaired a committee on really political terrorism coming from the left.
Yeah.
And it was just the stuff that he said was just absolutely brilliant.
Everybody's saying that.
Absolutely brilliant. But I want to go back to what Trump said. I mean, we could talk about the China threat and foreign interference. And Trump said it is breathtaking how susceptible we are to foreign interference. And then he brought out these Department of Homeland Security documents but while he was talking, there were tranches of documents that were being dropped. And people need to go to whitehouse.gov because these are documents. This isn't propaganda. These are documents from both intelligence communities, both under Biden and the first Trump administration, et cetera. I think we need to step back and see the numbers that we're talking about. In 4 states, 250,000 non-citizens that are registered to vote, including California and Nevada. We have 10 other states where there are 400,000 non-citizens and deceased persons, and it's stunning to me and frustrating as hell that the number one state on that list is the state of Texas. 113,000 people. What the hell are we doing? So Trump called us out and said, look, we've touched base with these states. He says, I'm scratching the surface because there's 40 other states that haven't reported this stuff. And he's just getting started. So then he said there's a SAVE database. These 10 states where there's 400,000 minimally are taking advantage of this SAVE database, the Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility Act database. And so public records, they're basically doing a cross-checking to make sure that these are legitimate. And then they dumped a bunch of stuff from multiple swing states from the 2020 election that shows that there were canvassing groups that were hired by left-wing money, i.e. Zuckerbucks, to the tune of $500 million, went out these organizations to canvass ballots. So they registered a bunch of illegitimate people, fake names, fake addresses, fake other personal data, and then they converted them into mail-in ballots, which then went into the curing process. People need to understand after a ballot's tossed, it's cured. So there were all kinds of legitimate examples of curing, fixing ballots after they're cast. Tens of millions of dollars in multiple swing states where elections basically turn. And so that's what's in the tranches that were dropped here.
So going back to our earlier
think about
point,
the scandalous nature of this whole thing.
Explain that, George, well. Go back to our point earlier about the power struggle. So if this is not fixed objectively for both sides, then it's like, well, if we can't beat them, join them. And so we're going to get into this business too. And so you're going to have conservatives and Republicans doing it. Oh, if they want to be violent, then I guess we have no choice to be violent because we're not going to be sitting ducks. You see where it goes? It turns into a jungle. It turns into a royal rumble. And this country was not predicated on, built on, or will not flourish in a royal rumble mindset. It will not. It will not. We're going to implode just like Rome did. We'll implode.
And this is why we keep coming back to the morality under the law. Why the founders wanted this to be a Christian-influenced country.
Yeah.
Not a theocracy, but a Christian-influenced country.
Right.
The principles of the Sermon on the Mount and the Ten Commandments. They wanted a country whose jurisprudence, whose law was based on those principles because they look out for God, self, and neighbor.
You can either love your neighbor, get one over on your neighbor, or eat your neighbor. You choose. Which one do you want? I definitely want to be where you have to eat your neighbor. And I don't want to be in a society where it's standard in some of these cultures, like in Minnesota and all those people from, what's that? Somalia is get one over on your neighbor. Or lying is just accepted. So I don't want that. I don't want to be in that on a regular basis. I know there's people that try to get one over on you, but that's where it's culturally acceptable. It's part of their moral compass. Or love your neighbor. You choose. I choose to love your neighbor. And then what that looks like is different. That doesn't mean tell my neighbor what they want to hear. That means to properly disagree with my neighbor and try to persuade them, not power push them. There's a difference. You can either govern by force and threats or by persuasion. Our founding fathers chose persuasion. That's just a fact. And either we want to preserve persuasion over power and threats, or we don't.
And that's where we need to park. It's not about deciding between Republicans and Democrats. It's deciding which worldview we're going to continue forward on. What's the worldview that's brought us here, that's made us the greatest country in the world? Yes, not a great country because we have a long way to go, but certainly the greatest among the alternatives.
That's right.
What has brought us to this point, and how do we preserve that? And so I think this is why Rubio, and I'd like to share that with you, Nico,
Please.
and Karen, and with our listeners. He hosted a conference on left-wing terrorism. And I think people need to go and I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, again, we're talking about worldview here, and go back and read his comments, his salient comments. There were officials there from more than 60 countries attending an event in D.C. Here's what he wrote, or here's what he stated. Quote, "This, left-wing terrorism, is a distinctive and unique evil." Notice he's not talking about partisans here or partisan claims or parties. He's going to go to the worldview at the heart of it. "It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, cannot create, cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy by seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time: anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, communist, anarchist, Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality, justice, liberation, an overwhelmingly need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness, and have nothing else to offer the world. It is time for the peoples of the civilized world to defend ourselves, to stand united against this encroaching darkness and fight for what is ours. End of quote.
Wow. Damn. Study that. It's cool.
Love him.
Yeah. I mean, I still
That's
don't.
a tour de force, man.
Just because Vance did a good job on Rogan, I'm not Vance over Rubio. Don't get yourself confused.
I love his ability to articulate on a number of fronts competently. But on this topic, remember, his family's history matters here. And you can tell it weighs heavily on him, having come from communist Cuba. He feels this at a visceral level. He experiences it. You can tell there's an intensity there. It's kind of like when I talk about our background having come from Africa, and really my parents having lost everything that they built at the helm of, at the hands of a Marxist revolution in Angola in the 70s. And so there's a sense of personal relevance with Rubio when he's talking about this. The existential nature of it is palpable. But this pertains to every American, not just Rubio. And this is a clarion call that we understand it's not just about Republican and Democrat here. This is about the fight of our lives as a nation. Are we going to seize and adhere to the principles that have made the country great? This Judeo-Christian morality, again, that puts God at the top and recognizes that we're not just here by happenstance. At the end of the day, at some point, Nico, we're going to have to give an account for our lives. Yep. We need to care for ourselves because we are temples of the Holy Spirit, if you believe that you're a Christian. And that I care for my neighbor. It's a lateral expression of my love for God and self. So those are the principles that kind of undergird American morality, if you will, and American jurisprudence or common law. And so we can either choose that or we can choose to destroy our neighbor, the politics of power, to get one over on everybody else. Yep. Are we a high trust culture or are we a low trust culture? Do we really want to be Somalia too? Do we want to be Sudan light? So, and I think Rubio said we're really at a crossroads here. How shall we decide? Let's make an informed decision.
Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Not at all.
Gary says, right on, George.
No, it's got to be no criticism.
And there was one Nico for president.
Oh, I don't know about that. Well, all right, guys.
I'd rather have right on. Have fun, brother.
I'll take the
I'll
right
vote
on.
for it.
Got
my vote.
All right, guys. Well, we'll try to get through these comments. George, you're going to answer Mr. Jimenez.
Oh, yeah.
Roberts.
Look forward to it.
Okay, good.
Look forward to completing.
Thanks for joining. Please share this. Look, like, subscribe. I don't even know how to say that. We should say this at the beginning of the podcast, maybe.
Oh, it's my fault again.
Karen, come on. I mean, so share all that stuff. I mean, look and comment. We'll do our best to look at the comments and respond to them. I try to do that at some point, and I know Karen does as well, I think, and George obviously does as well. We'll try to do our best to engage. And thank you for joining us. Have a blessed weekend, and see you next week. Bye-bye. God bless you.